Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Penny Pincher Firearms. I finally have a video with a penny pincher. I've actually had this gun for over a year now. I just revealed it in my last episode where I did my Q&A. I used it as my example of a semi-automatic handgun. It's not my Luger, it's a Tokarev. Now, let's make sure it's nice and empty. Magazine's empty. Chamber's empty. Now, the Tokarev, first off, just so everybody knows, I paid $300 for it. I bought it over at Gander Mountain. Gander Mountain seems to have a large amount of surplus handguns right now, and they have a lot of these Tokarevs still. I bought this one a year ago. It's a pretty cool gun. If you don't know anything about Tokarevs, they're pretty much basically like Browning 1903 or kind of even a 1911. It's very similar to a 1911 in operation. It has, in this case, it's a 7.62 by 2.5. It has an 8-round magazine. 45 1911s. They have, 7-round magazines. Some have extended ones. You can buy extended magazines for this. This one in particular is a TTC made in Romania. And I've seen Taiwanese post production ones, as many as 10 rounds. The Chinese even made one that was a double stack Tokarev in 9mm. You can actually get accessories for these that make them into a 9mm. There's this, for the life of me, I can't remember the name of it, but the piece right here that basically keeps everything secure on the front end. That you can get a 9mm version of it, and then a 9mm version of the barrel. And in most cases, you can shoot 9mm out of the magazine without modification. So that's kind of a cool thing. Those parts are pretty rare these days, just because there's not a very high demand. So not too many people are making them. I think as more of these guns get into the market, more people are going to want those things, and there might be some locally produced ones. As far as I know, most of those produced were Pakistani, so they're still probably just fine quality. They probably work just as well as a 7.62 by 2.5, but I just kind of like the original caliber. So I have done almost no modification to this gun. I bought it a year ago, like I said, $300. To go into the gun itself, it's slide operated semi-automatic handgun. It's chambered in a 7.62 by 2.5 round, which is an actual supersonic pistol round, which is fairly uncommon. I mean, 9mm can break the sound barrier, but this one definitely does. It was a step up from what the Russians had previously, which was the 7.62 by 3.8 rimmed Nagant revolver that they adopted in the 1890s. So, this was an improvement, though production of these as well as those kind of went parallel during World War II. These were typically issued to not really commando units, but more elite units, as well as pilots, officers, that sort of thing. Whereas the Nagant revolvers were usually issued to NCOs and lower enlisted. So, kind of a cool bit of history. This one in particular, though, was made in 1953 in Romania. It's pretty much all matching except for the magazines. It came with 2 magazines. The magazine number is 578, and it's 168. So it's it's not all matching, but it's not really all about having matching numbers. $300, you get a fairly decent pistol that possibly in the future you can convert over to 9mm. 7.62 by 2.5 is not an easy round to find, though PPU does produce ammunition for it, and on rare occasion you can get some Winchester ammunition for it. So that's always something that's out there. As far as accuracy is concerned, not great. I know that's going to be a question people would have, is how does it shoot? That'll be a video for the future, but it's not great. It really isn't. I've tried zeroing it, but really all I can do is drift adjust the rear sight left and right, and it's just not, it's not designed for accuracy. I mean, it's a military handgun. It was designed in the 1930s by the Soviet Union. So really all it had to do was make a lot of noise and hopefully hit your target. But as far as shooting it, though, it's very comfortable. It's an extremely comfortable handgun. The recoil on it, you would think is snappy. I've shot a CZ52, which shoots the same round, and I consider its recoil snappy, but it's basically just a straight blowback. This is a delayed blowback. I'll come in a minute, and we can take a look at the internals of this thing and how it works in just a moment. But it really does take a lot of the recoil out, this slide. This is a very heavy slide for that round. But it still has a big blast. Like, it is a loud gun because it's breaking the sound barrier. It does have a safety right here, as you can see. That is actually installed later for import purposes. You cannot import these guns these days without some kind of safety, and honestly, it seems like it's an okay half-cock, but, you know, I just like anybody else, I don't really trust half-cocks as a safety. So, yeah, it's just a trigger safety. It's just a trigger block safety. All it does is make it so you can't pull the trigger. As soon as it's off, you can pull the trigger. Now, a lot of people might watch this video and say something about me dry firing it. I actually have a new machined firing pin in it. I got rid of the old cast one, so it's a much higher quality stainless steel firing pin. No, I'm not taking it out to show you guys just because it was a pain in the butt to put in. This spring pin right here really did not want to cooperate when I was installing it, so I don't want to deal with it again. I did that probably back in June, because guess what? The firing pin broke. So, and people warned me like the firing pins were weak, and I just kind of shrugged my shoulders, but whatever. So the ones I bought, the one I bought, it came with two magazines, two 8-round magazines. One is a new made one from Taiwan, really nice black thing. It's painted black though. I don't like that. I prefer blued like this one. But it's a nice magazine. It functions, and that's all that matters. I mean, this is really one of the two things that really makes a semi-automatic gun function is the magazine. So let's just get the camera around and take a closer look, and maybe we can get this thing disassembled. Okay, so now for disassembly of the TTC, which is the same process as the TT33 and the TT30. Really, any of these Tokarev handguns, the disassembly method is basically going to be the same. With Zastavas, they might be a little different, the later ones that are 9mm, but I don't personally know just because I've never actually shot one. So I've got a nice little disassembly tool in the shape of a 7.62x5.4, mostly because I don't have 7.62x2.5, but everything I do with this, you can do with one of those rounds. This is just what I had available. So step one of disassembly would be to remove your magazine and make sure your firearm is clear. It is clear. Okay? So you can leave the hammer back. It won't really affect too much right now. So second step would be to press this in, which is actually hard at this angle just because I'm not facing it. I'm kind of sideways to it off camera. So you take this, turn it all the way to that point, and you would take it out, controlling the spring. This is the recoil spring, making sure that doesn't fly out across the room. That happened to me earlier on one of my cuts. So let's get those out of the way. This basically controls the recoil spring as well as the barrel. Make sure everything's nice and aligned. Make sure the spring doesn't fly out on you. So it's a vital part of your gun, just like every other part. Next step is this spring clip right here. So using this, there's a nice little lip right here. You can just push it out of the way. Don't push it all the way back until it comes off. You don't need to go that far. Push this pin right here, and that takes out a control lever right here, as well as the hold open, the magazine hold open for an empty magazine. This will lock into the slide and make sure it doesn't go forward after you have an empty magazine. So we'll put that to the side. And then and just slide this all forward. This will fall out. This is basically just your spring guide, so you can put it right there. I forgot it last time in my excitement, like I said. Then you have this little lever. Push the lever forward after pushing this up. I think one of the hardest things to get out easily can be the barrel, just because these lugs will just lock up on you. And I mean, that's what they're designed to do. So that's all disassembled right there. But there's one cool step to the whole thing. It's not necessary, but I think it's one of the coolest things about the TTC, the Tokarev handgun, is the Soviet Union gave them modular trigger groups. Now, that's really odd for a country that was very frugal, because this is kind of an expensive thing to have. But it's smart for a military firearm, because this is one of the things that is probably most likely to fail, because there are a lot of little things in there that can break, and it's way easier for the armorer to just take out this trigger group and throw it in a bucket, grab another one, and be like, okay, there you go. You have a fresh new gun. Super simple. It's actually surprising that they didn't integrate something like that into 1911s later on. But, no, that's how things work. Now, I can remove this safety. I found that there's a little detent thing that likes to pop out on me. So I'm just going to leave it in there. But really, it's as simple as taking your spring clip, moving it over here so it's no longer holding the safety, and then pushing it through. There's really nothing else holding it in place. So just put that spring right back to there, and this should all be good to go. Now, the way this gun operates is it's a delayed blowback, I guess dropping barrel action. So what happens is this rod right here is on this side, and it's like this when everything's in battery. And what occurs is during recoil, the whole barrel and slide assembly comes back at the same time. And I know this is all upside down. I'm very sorry. But it's all in the angles right now. So what happens is this moves back, and that lever is pulling down on the barrel. And it's kind of hard to do because I don't have the collet over there. And drops it off of those locking lugs. And then it'll come back to here. Everything goes back into locking lugs when everything's back into battery. So what I'm going to show you here, by the way, I blued the barrel on this. I thought it looked kind of nice being blued rather than in the white. It's not a great bluing job. I need to redo it, but whatever. So these rings are basically your locking lugs on the barrel. And what they do is, I'm going to bring it in close here. They lock against those surfaces right there. See them in there? So that's what's keeping all of the pressure in the chamber for the first few millimeters of travel for the barrel and the slide. After that point, after everything is disengaged, the slide comes back, and there you go. You have the operation of the firearm. It goes forward. If you still have a round in the magazine, reloads the chamber, repeats process. So fairly simple design. I guess let's get this guy reassembled. The first step would be to put your trigger group back in. We take the barrel assembly, and I kept trying to treat it like a Glock, so I kept trying to feed it in that way. Did not work. You want to have this arm up right here. That'll be important. Get your spring guide right here. Put it right there. Very important part. Oh, trigger fell out. That happens a lot. You got to control it. And slide it all together. Now, the easiest way to line this up is to make that curve continuous back here by the trigger. So you can hold that in place. See through there? Even in the shadows. See how the sides of... Come on. You're focusing on other things earlier. You can kind of see it in there. See that, how it darkened in there? That's it lined up. Right there. So then you'd put your pin in there, and that'll hold it in place properly. It's not being cooperative again. Yeah, this gun is showing me no love today. I think it knows it's being filmed. Take a recoil spring, place it in the hole until it lines up and goes on to the guide rod, and then push it all the way down. Then you take this collet, this piece, I'm probably calling it by the wrong name, but whatever. You know what it is if you have a TTC especially. It's that piece, also a 1911s. So now it's locked in place. Slide it over. It should stay in place. And now you have a functional gun. So coming back to it, you know, it's an all-right gun, the Tokarev. I can understand why the Soviet Union might have adopted it in the 1930s, or did in fact adopt it in the 1930s. I personally don't think it's the greatest gun ever. If you're looking for a self-defense firearm, I would pass on this. If you're looking for something for prepping, I would totally pass on it, just because ammunition's not very easy to find. Self-defense wise, the round is just trucking along too fast. It's not. It doesn't seem like it would have stopping power, and nobody really produces a well-tested hollow point. PPU does produce a jacketed hollow point, and I do assume that you can make your own hollow points. It is 7.62, so 30 caliber hollow points are available. You might run into issues with weights and stuff like that. So reloading with this gun might be necessary, especially in the future. So, you know, if you're looking for something for self-defense, for prepping, for being tactical, I'm not tactical. You know I'm not tactical. But if you're looking for something like that, pass on this. It's a neat gun. Don't get me wrong. I personally like it. I don't see myself keeping it forever. I'm not married to this gun. I might keep it for a little while longer so I can make a shooting video of it and then sell it. But other than that, you know, I'm not in love. It is what it is. It's you know, a Browning copy handgun, shooting a really hot round. So a few points for those people who want to buy one of these for the purposes of just shooting. There is a lot of hammer bite. Like, I have had some really bad hammer bite from this. It's torn up my hand right here before. Not much in the way of slide bite though, but that hammer is pretty darn wicked. So be prepared for that. It is very loud, just because the bullet is breaking the sound barrier. So it's loud. It's not particularly snappy, but it does work the wrist a bit. Just because of how fast that bullet's going, you do get a bit more recoil than you might expect. But honestly, go with a 9mm or a 380 if you're looking for something for self-defense. You can buy one for about the same price that I paid for this, $300. You can possibly even get a used Glock for about $300. It'd be in pretty bad shape, but you know, I bet a bad shaped Glock is going to be better than this for home defense or self-defense or any other purpose. But if you're interested in, say, you know, Soviet era handguns, you know, go for it. I wouldn't say it's a very accurate range gun, so just, you know, put it somewhere. Act like it's cool. It is kind of a cool gun. It has a nice look to it. I like its aesthetic. It's all black, which is kind of a neat thing you didn't see back in those days. Most everything had a wood grip or something, so you know, having an all black gun back then is kind of a neat thing. Most of these are not in the best shape. I personally picked out this one at Gander Mountain. I totally inspected it when I was there. I checked the barrel. I actually took the whole thing apart with the guy's supervision and the manager's permission. The guy there knows me, and I took the whole thing apart and just took a look in the internals and stuff, and just made sure everything was in good shape, because we went through 3 of them. They had 3 at the time. They have like 6 or 7 now, But I took the whole thing apart, and this was the winner of the three. It had a really good barrel. The trigger assembly was in decent shape. One of them actually had a matching trigger assembly though, so that was kind of a cool thing. But this one won out just because it was in the best shape. Even then, like, you can hear that rattle. It is kind of a loose gun. Tolerances are pretty low in the Soviet Union, even in Romania, even though I don't think Romania itself was at war with anybody. Just the nature of Soviet created firearms, it just tended to be a little looser in the tolerances, which meant lower accuracy. So, yeah, that's pretty much all I have to say about the Tokarev TTC, the Romanian Tokarev. I assume TT30s and TT33s are essentially the same in form and function, basically because they are the same gun. In fact, this is basically a TT33. So, yeah, I always say a good gun doesn't have to cost a pretty penny, but in this case, it's an okay gun that doesn't have to cost a pretty penny. But yeah, that's really where it is. It's an okay gun. It's not the best. So, yeah, thanks for watching, and catch me next time.